I'm allowed to talk about politics in the place where I live, for any world for that matter, but especially for the place where I live. Okay? So let's try to keep the internet connected. I cannot watch YouTube without seeing David Eby's smug face. And he needs to wipe that smug grin off his ugly face because he has nothing to be smiling about. His government is a pathetic failure and has absolutely destroyed the brand of the NDP. The NDP, New Democrat Party, is supposedly the left-wing party of British Columbia, province of Canada. In Canada in general, the NDP are a left-wing party. Okay. But you wouldn't know that this was a left-wing party when you look at what's going on in BC today. So any idea that the NDP stands for class politics or helping the poor, yeah, that needs to be thrown away because that's not what this NDP government stands for. I don't know what they stand for, actually. Identity politics and wokeism, maybe? Yeah. But they don't stand for actually improving the lives of people or addressing the poor, in particular the poor or the working class. No, they don't stand for that whatsoever. And I will give more detail on that. This article, I don't want to read it because it's boring. You can read it on the Vancouver Sun. It's just something to have on the screen here. But it's talking about that people are wondering whether or not there's an election, a snap election coming because they're noticing all these ads. There's been a huge ad spree going from this NDP government, which might be a sign that they're planning on not going to the fixed election date and calling a snap election, especially that their rivals, the BC Liberals, are going through a brand name change, changing their names to the BC United Party. I just want to say something that stands out when I was reading this article is early election speculation, including a strong economy. Really? There's a strong economy in BC? I wouldn't have known that. I would not have known that because prices are out of control and human misery is out of control. So I don't see how there is a strong economy. No, there's no strong economy to speak of. And, what's the other thing that it was saying that was kind of a big laugh? During a press conference to announce a $479 million bailout for TransLink Wednesday. Is that something to be happy about? Is that positive? I don't believe any of that money would have been going towards actually improving transit for people. I mean, that would be cool. No. This is just a bailout so that they can continue to operate as the inefficient and horrendous transit organization that TransLink is. Doesn't mean that there's going to be anything new for people. I mean, that's just probably going to go for salaries, really high, expensive salaries for union staff who've been there forever and things like that. Not anything that's going to translate for the public in terms of improved transit conditions. So, and the fact that they need a bailout for just to continue with their operations, I wouldn't really consider that to be a good thing. EB has defended the use of taxpayer dollars to fund a radio ad that praises him for taking real action. What action? What action, bitch, have you taken? There's no action being taken, okay? The healthcare crisis and the housing crisis rage like infernos in British Columbia, and nothing is being done. Nothing meaningful is being done to address them. Key issues like affordability. Yeah, what are you doing to address affordability? Nothing. And what else? Attacking the BC Liberals for making life better for those at the top. I heard that just as I was starting this stream. Okay. So that's all this is talking about. Speculation that there might be an election coming. Well, whenever the election is coming, let me just say, I will not be voting for the NDP. I'm actually probably going to be voting for the new version of the BC Liberals, which is shocking because, I mean, I was never a supporter of the BC Liberals. When they were in power, I was a huge opponent of them. Huge. I mean, just evil, the things that happened under them. But as terrible as the Liberals were, they don't even come close to how horrible the NDP have been, because life really is hell in BC right now. Like, everything is just so out of control. We have a terrible healthcare crisis. We have, like, there's no doctors. There are no doctors. No doctors. Anywhere that you go, there's no doctors. Okay? I haven't had a family doctor since the 80s. And, you know, I'm at risk of losing my income as a result. I was at risk of losing my income as a result. Luckily, I found a nurse practitioner who took me on as a patient, and that's being accepted. But, you know, that's still not the same as a doctor. And there are no doctors. Like, even if you go to the hospital to see a doctor in a hospital, there's no doctors in the hospitals even. You have to wait sometimes days on end. There's been cases, you know, for hours, to the point where it's all day, if not more than one day, several days. People have died in the past 2 or 3 years since the NDP have been in power. People have died in hospital waiting rooms in BC waiting to see a doctor because they have to wait that long, like 2 or 3 days of waiting in a hospital, and the person is now dead. Okay? That happened somewhere in the Lower Mainland. We had, like, it's just been horrible, absolutely horrendous. And we have the health minister, Adrian Dix, who recently wrote a self-serving article in the Vancouver Sun talking about how great he was and his performance was during the COVID pandemic and how we were all in it together. No, we're not all in it together, because some of us have doctors and some of us don't. And you don't care about those who don't. And, like, housing is out of control. Housing is absolutely out of control. I've moved to Kamloops in July of last year, and it's almost, and now we're in March. It's almost a year later, and I still have not found safe and secure, affordable housing. I'm having to pay $1,700 a month to live in a hotel. See, how much of my income is that? Because I make $2,400 in a month. So 17 out of 24 is 70%. 70% of my take-home income goes to my rent. I remember when they used to say 30% should be the ideal. I remember when people thought 50% was harsh. I'm at 70%. When I first moved here, I was charged $2,800. So 28 divided by 24. I was paying 116% of my income, more than my monthly income, was going to my rent. Okay? Nothing is being done. Nothing at all is being done to address any of this. There might be a lucky few exceptions who somehow manage to find relief during these times. Those are the exceptions. They're certainly not me. Okay? I mean, it's in the news here in Kamloops that, like, that they don't even have any obstetricians, that pregnant women have nowhere to go if they're pregnant, or I don't know exactly if they have a complicated pregnancy. I don't know what it is, but, like, there are no doctors. There are no doctors. Okay, period. End of discussion. No doctors. And all sorts of things flow from that, because doctors are needed for all sorts of things. And it's been going on for so long that even to have a doctor at this point, the lack of a doctor for so long has qualitatively put my life in down. That I will never fully recover from the lack of doctors that I've experienced. Okay? And I'm not a one-off. Lots of people don't have doctors. There's just, it's the thing is, I'm talking about housing and healthcare. These should be the strengths of the NDP. I was just hearing that David Eby talking about, well, for decades, the Liberals were in power and they set things up to benefit those at the top. Okay, maybe. But you've been in power since 2017. Isn't it about time that you stopped talking about the previous party that was in power more than 6 years ago? What has transpired over the past 6 years? Nothing, but everything got worse. Okay? So you got brought in because, yeah, people were sick of the BC Liberals after decades, 16 years of them being in power. Yeah, we were sick of them. And we needed a change. And we needed an improvement in terms of housing and healthcare. And we didn't get it. All we got was for conditions to worsen. So now the housing situation is worse than when the Liberals were in power. And the healthcare situation is worse than when the Liberals were in power. So you need to stop talking about when the Liberals were in power, which was more than 6 years ago, and talk about, well, why is it that during the past 6 years that you've been in power, these things that you were given a mandate to improve on these areas, and they've worsened, not improved, worsened. Okay, and you're supposed to be the left-wing party that's on a spending spree. Okay, so where's this money going? Why are we not getting any results for this supposed money that's being spent? Why is healthcare and housing such crisis? That's for you to answer, bitches. You bitches, I'm talking the NDP, the New Democrat Party of BC, and Premier Eby. That's for you to answer. I don't have the answer. Why is it that you're such a failure? Why is it that these issues are burning and not being resolved 6 years into your mandate? Why is it that a harsh right-wing party, when we look back on them, actually seems like a more caring and more generous party in terms of social spending, in terms of actual results for the people, than you? Like, why is it that you have forfeited your brand as being, okay, so if you want a good healthcare system and if you want action on housing, you know what? We better vote NDP. That would have been the brand in the past. That would have been the thinking in the past. Why is it that the NDP has forfeited that and decided to let the Liberals, the right-wing Liberals, to appear as though they are actually, in comparison with, like, I mean, I remember it. There was nothing near this healthcare crisis or housing crisis when the Liberals were in power. So look back on those times, as horrendous as the Liberals were, they were not as bad. The conditions were not as bad as with the NDP being in power. What happened to your 400? And by the way, you came to power in 2017 on a promise to give renters a $400 subsidy. Then you reneged, and you've never made good on that promise. 6 years in. Okay? Why haven't you? I also heard that you were going to give relief for inflation. Where's the relief, bitch? No relief. I think I heard something about child tax benefit or something. Okay, people who have kids. Well, a lot of poor people don't have kids because we can't afford to have kids. So there's no relief for us. You are a failure, David Eby. You are an abject failure. I would have thought, like, I would not have expected this at all. And I was not really your fan before, but like, it's not like I was your enemy either. But, I wouldn't have expected this. I would have thought that you would have actually caused the healthcare system to improve, put some money to it, and actually hire people to get things going. But no, you're putting money to it, but I don't think you're not getting any results. And same with housing. I would have thought that you would have done something to help with housing. But no, No. Okay? So this lifelong NDP supporter over here, who's campaigned for you, who's volunteered for you, who's taken people to the polls for you to make sure that they vote NDP, I'm talking in past elections, I'm actually going to support your opponents. The BC United Party, the new version of the Liberals. Yeah, I am. Because they couldn't be worse than you. You're the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. You're pathetic. You should be embarrassed. You have nothing to smile about. Wipe that grin off your face. People are not smiling. You fucker. That's all I have to say. Don't vote NDP, people. Don't vote NDP. Don't vote NDP. Whatever you do, don't vote NDP. This thing was talking about the 2020 election and that why did John Horgan call a snap election and he didn't get punished at the polls? Well, he should have been punished at the polls, but the fix was clearly in. That was not at all a fair election because it was happening in the shadow of the US presidential election of Trump, where Trump was defeated. And that was all that anybody was paying attention to. And there was no opportunity to engage, to criticize the NDP. Like someone high up somewhere decided that it was the NDP's turn to stay in power. Okay? And like I could not write anything, one bad word against the NDP during that election. Everything was censored. Everything. So I would not really consider that to be a fair election or something to compare things to. Is the censorship going to be off the charts again? Probably. I mean, but eventually people are going to have to take notice. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why people are so brain dead. I guess people are in survival mode. But, like, conditions are really bad. I cannot get basic treatment for things and suffering as a result. And here you are, you pompous politicians, praising yourselves. Go fuck off. I'm going to put you in a bubble and push you down a hill. A bubble?